Yeah. You've touched on a very when you describe your background, you made a link between the current or the youth currently and the youth in 1976. Is there a link? Can we see a relationship between these two massive events that changed the world or our country?
Yes, we can.
Mm,
Yes, we can in many different respects.
sure.
When I started doing a little bit of some of my research, looking at fees must fall and juxtaposing it with 1976,
Mm,
I found that the struggle, as I said, is within the same field, the education field. But
mm,
also, as I looked through it, I found that young people in South Africa were mobilizing power with the intention to basically come against an education policy that was being put in by the apartheid government.
mm,
So basically, it was against an education policy. And what you find is that during this fight, the epic fight of 1976,
mm,
you find that the students are specifically fighting to not have Afrikaans as a
mm,
medium of instruction.
mm.
Okay. And yes, that is what was at the forefront of their fight.
Yeah.
But I think also in that conversation, they also undertones of access to education.
Mm,
And specifically, I think access to education in our mother languages,
yeah.
in our mother tongues,
Mm,
being able to access education in our mother tongues. And I think that was part of the undertones of the 1976 struggle, you know. And the use of local languages was prohibited in school,
sure.
And in all honesty, it, I think this is me asking a question and wanting to
I
answer
know
it.
immediately when you say something and you start taking that big, deep breath,
Yeah.
I know something is about to go down.
Did 1976 achieve its intention?
Yeah.
Its intention being it that they wanted to have, the use of our mother languages in our education.
Mm,
I'd say a partial success in the sense that a school like where I teach in Soweto
yeah.
would have Xhosa as well as isiZulu as the second, the home language rather, as the home language. So in other words, the official medium of instruction for all subjects is English, but they have Xhosa home language that they're doing as one of their subjects, or
Yeah.
isiZulu home language as one of their subjects. So, in that sense, it's a partial victory. But at the
Okay.
same time, it isn't a full victory because, in all honesty, we are not learning mathematics in our home language. We are not learning science in our home languages in South African schools at the moment.
Yeah.
And so, being it that English is used as a measure of intelligence,
Yeah.
one who is not fluent in English and who struggles with the English language is automatically viewed as not being smart enough to go through the education system and get the uttermost best marks. Now, it's also a difficult conversation to have
Yeah.
because at the same time, you need to be mindful of the fact that um, even our home languages are being lost. They're getting lost in the sense that the vocabulary necessary in order for it to be an educational medium of instruction is something that is still in need of being developed fully, and also because, for example, in a township like Soweto, linking back to someone like me who had
Yeah.
lost so much of my home language, if they were to give me mathematics in isiZulu, the question is how much would I be able to engage with the subject itself, being it that my Zulu is lacking, lacking in terms of its formality. I've got spoken language, I can interact
Yeah.
on a daily basis, but
Mm,
when I have to go into an academic space and use my home language,
mm,
it would be a difficulty. So basically, it's very layered. It's not an outright easy answer to get to say it's you just have to have math textbooks in Zulu produced and then we can start. It's not as easy as that. It goes back even to teacher training.
sure.
Go to Wits University or any varsity where you have teachers being trained. I remember when I was in varsity, we had to do a compulsory subject, language rather, a
Yeah.
compulsory language that was not a language that you've done previously. So I ended up doing a spade. I walked out of it with a distinction in spade. And if you ask me right now, how much of
Yeah.
spade do I know and how confident I am in using the language as a means of instruction, it's not necessarily that it developed a confidence in which I can teach
Yeah.
using
So
the
it
language.
was more
So
of just surface teaching. So you can
it
just
was no, it was more like I struggle with the language in order for me to understand if I have to work maybe in Pretoria where there's steady speaking learners who I'm teaching. If they come to me and ask me to go to the toilet, I know what they're saying. If they want to go drink water and if they're asking me if it's lunchtime now, I know those basics. But
yeah.
in all honesty, do I know the language deep enough for me to be able to teach history using the language? No. You understand? So I'd
Yeah.
say we are very far off from the success that is in promoting the use of
Our own
home
languages.
languages, South African home languages, as mediums of instruction. And being it that I fall within the generation regarded as the born freeze, I mean, I was born in a generation which was post apartheid, but still had to do English and Afrikaans in school.
In school.
You know,
And
I had to do
you had no
English and
problem about
Afrikaans
it.
in school.
About
I
Africans.
did have a problem.
Okay. Okay.
Well, I'll be honest. For some reason, my problem laid more with Afrikaans than it did with English, and maybe that's because the British colonial rule in our country is not as in my face as the apartheid rule
Yeah.
was. You know, so apartheid Afrikaner power is one that hits more at home than British power. And I'm not trying to say that English
It's
in
better.
itself is not problematic. It
Yeah.
is problematic.
Yeah.
As much as I use the language and I speak the language, I now realize that it's not necessarily a sense of pride that I should have just because I'm so fluent in this language. I wish I could be so fluent in my own home language.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when it was the 2010 World Cup and I saw white people who could not speak English properly. It was the biggest joke for me. I rolled on the floor laughing my head off. And then after laughing, I sat down and I thought to myself, those people are truly liberated
Yeah. They
because
truly liberated. Truly
yes,
liberated.
because they can enjoy education and any other thing in their home language. You know, go to France. In France, they enjoying speaking French and they don't care what the rest of the world is going to say. Go
That's
to
true.
Germany. Germany, I mean, France, you could even say France, French is used in other countries as well, even
Yeah.
African countries.
Yeah.
But how about German? German is not something that is so common or popular in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
But the Germans are not budging and saying let's get English as the official medium of instruction.
Look at
The
Russians.
Germans do everything in their home language. I mean,
Oh.
they'll go to the extent of advertising a VW in South Africa and still use the German term. You know,
Yeah.
I forgot what is the Vorsprung der Technik. You know,
I remember.
right here, I know the term. I know the term, and you know, so that's why I say, we as South Africans shoot ourselves in the leg and say,
Yeah.
no, who are you gonna work for if you do a degree in isiZulu and qualify as a business whatever in isiZulu? Who's gonna employ you? Who said we need to be employed?
That's
I
true.
think as a society, if we were doing things in our home language, maybe we would have developed a lot more and been a society that is greatly or more educated, and more numbers of people who are educated,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So the conversation there for me strikes to say that in the whole fight, 1976, trying to promote African languages, that is a fight that I think is still being fought till today. The 1976 fight is not over.
It's not over yet.
That was only the start. 1976 was only the start. It was not the conclusion of the matter.
I hear you. I hear you bringing like you're bringing very important matters on the table, like matters that needs to be to be discussed. For instance, you you just mentioned that we as South Africans, we have two options. to say, okay, apartheid was just on our faces. Therefore, we're not going to gravitate towards apartheid, but we'll gravitate towards English. But still, it doesn't make them better people. How about looking at ourselves, not
Yeah.
not not trying to make excuses? Like I listened to one podcast. It was full of linguistics. People study linguistics. They were making quite a lot of excuses about why we can't have math in Zulu, why we can't have ed. I'm like, if we don't start, then will we ever say to um, our brothers and sisters, our uncles, our mothers and fathers from 1976, say, you know what, your battle, what you were fighting for in 76, it's now here. Will it ever be possible to
So
say, look at Soweto with 1.1.2, around 1.2 million people. Look at
1.9 now,
1.9.
almost
See,
1.9. Yep.
see, 1.9. Look at that number of people, and if we look at the majority language that is spoken there, it's Zulu. Why can't we just say, let's make Soweto a Zulu speaking, not Zulu speaking, like going into classroom and use Zulu as English, and then just drop English. Why can't we do that? Are we obsessed about employment?
For me, it's not even about dropping English. It's about having English as maybe an additional language that is
Yeah,
being learned,
yeah,
just for the purpose of you need to learn and know English. But then the medium of instruction in the school being the home language that is most popular in the area. Now, I want us to take into consideration that Soweto as an area is actually made up of 40 something townships.
yeah.
And to rush it over and say use Zulu for all schools wouldn't necessarily solve the problem, because that also links up to tribalism that we're experiencing in the country. Where Zulu is almost looked at as an authority. You know, I mean, I always make this joke to say not all taxi drivers are Zulu.
Yeah.
It's just the language of business in the taxi industry. You know,
Now
and
you're
I
making
guess
you're
you
making a
sound more
very
threatening
important
if you
important
threaten
one to
someone
say
in Zulu.
Zulu can be used as a business language, and it's used as business language in a
Yeah.
taxi.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
in the
we
taxi
we
industry,
started.
Zulu is the most popular language,
Yeah.
especially in Johannesburg, in the Johannesburg area. So Zulu is the language of business,
And
but then also be aware that it's used also as a possible force. You can be sidelined and treated badly simply because you don't know Zulu. So that's why I say I don't want us to use Zulu as a benchmark. I'm saying whichever language is the most spoken in a particular area. So if you go to an area like Shawelo, for example, in Soweto,
let's
in
use
Shawelo has
Tonga,
got a lot of Tonga speaking people. If you go to an area like Botladi, Piri,
the
you've got
Malays,
your Sutu and Bwana and all of that. So that's why I say I wouldn't want to
to just
replace
give one.
one
Yeah.
one injustice with another
Yeah.
injustice.
Yeah.
I mean, South Africa as a country, we are very weird. There's a time when we were so excited wanting to introduce Mandarin, you know,
And then
and we
the
are
other
a
time
weird
again, we're
country.
excited wanting to introduce Kiswahili. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, yeah. So the question is, at which point do we acknowledge who we are and
I mean,
promote ourselves,
yeah.
and be proud of who we are, you know, and really actually have a real unity in diversity.
Not just in
Because
the
unity
writing.
in diversity is not promoting a dominant culture of a few people, you know. And why is it that you can have war schools and lab schools in which Afrikaans is the main medium of instruction, and they can go out and have careers? They can even have Stellenbosch University having Afrikaans as the main medium of instruction, to the extent that you'll even have black kids who go to Stellenbosch or Potchefstroom University and continue their studies in Afrikaans because they had gone to an Afrikaans high school. So why can't we have the same equivalent? It's not as if Afrikaans is international, you know. The reality of it is Afrikaans isn't necessarily international.
South
At most,
African.
Afrikaans is popular in South Africa and Namibia.
Yeah,
you know. So
it's local.
yeah,
But again, what you're saying, you're touching on important things that we as a people need to build as black people in South Africa. And in fact, as black people generally in the world, we don't get to build institutions for ourselves. So at the moment, what you're saying
yeah,
about Afrikaans people, it's possible for them to teach their children from grade one Afrikaans until 12 university. University, they go work at ABSA, Afrikaans. Like we don't have systems. We don't build institutions as black people. We prefer riding on other people's institutions. That's why we're losing ourselves in translation.
yeah. The reality of it is that in order to achieve the success, the work has to be done.
Sure.
And the work that needs to be done has to be done from a policy and governmental perspective. Because it's no use me as an individual getting excellent in the use of my home language and learning even how to teach in my home language when there is no policy that allows me to actually teach in that language as a medium of instruction. So at the end of the day, if you're going to say that you're allowing people to learn their home languages and it's freely available for them to do so, also institute a policy that says we're going to begin rolling out mother tongue education from grade 1 until grade 12. And maybe it could be a 12-year plan. And at the end of that 12-year plan, we're rolling out first year university tongue education. And until you get to as high as PhD level, you know, and you find that there's small successes, small victories that exist. I remember when I was doing my postgraduate, I was told that yes, you're allowed to write in your home language if you feel you would want to, you know, but that's not the whole course being provided in my home language. And you find that the content that I need to study would be in English, you know. So you're allowed to write your personal essay in your home language, but what about the study content, you know? So
In English.
yeah, touching on that, I'd say there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And when it comes to this, I don't want to say it's the white person's responsibility. It's my responsibility, it's your responsibility, it's our responsibility as black people to develop our own languages and to develop academic content in our own home languages. But then, in order to do that, we need to begin by being excellent at our home languages, you know, and to achieve that, it's a process that starts from as early as pre-primary, you know.
Yeah,
It's something that begins as early as that, developing a sense of pride in our home languages and a sense of value, you know. I mean, I've heard the statement made many a times that where will Zulu take you? You know,
that's
like
true.
what are
That's
you going
very
to do
true.
with that? You know, what are you going to do that with that in future? And
Yeah,
especially when you go to multiracial schools where kids are discouraged to use their language as much as possible. You know, they're discouraged because it's something that is looked at as having no value and very useless for your future success.
yeah. Now I hear you. There's a lot of status attached to English. Therefore, everybody wants to speak English. Like it's funny. It's funny on how we've been going. I think we spent about 5-10 minutes. I'm talking about the language. And what's funny is, what's really funny is, both of us are black people. You're Zulu
But we're
man.
using
I'm
English.
Setswana man, and I understand Zulu, but we're messing up with English.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
we want to get to that status. We want to,
That's
that's
we've been colonized,
we've been colonized.
and we haven't shaken that off.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
unfortunately, I think if we were to run an AA type of session, you know, you've got your alcohol anonymous sessions where they say, "Hi, I'm whoever, and I am an
Colonized.
alcoholic." Well, I think we must really begin there, you know, and say, "Hi, my name is Njabs Mkhize. I admittedly can say I am a coconut and I really need help." You know, that's where it begins. We need to firstly admit that
Uh,
we there's a lack and
yeah,
we need help
yeah,
to get out of that.
yeah.
And I believe that there are people who can help. There are people who can help. The
That's true.
difference is this: the people who can help some of the people who can help don't have academic qualifications. Because you find that some of the people who are the most fluent in our home languages, people who can really add value
Mm.
in our home languages, are our grandmothers and
That's true.
grandfathers who are
That's true.
much older, and they still hold the language. They still hold the original, the value of the language, and they can teach us so much. But in all honesty, we've sidelined our elders, and we're not really using the wisdom and knowledge that they hold.
A hold. Very true. Very true. Very true. Very true. When you say this, you remind me of I was watching TV last time. I think last weekend, and Mkhize Dlamini was invited to come speak, and then he came in as a, I think you know the story, as a customary law expert, and it was told you cannot be a customary law expert. You only have one model, and that. Then he came back and said, you know what, I am an expert because I know the culture. I'm exposed to culture. I grew in this within this culture. I know everything. So our grandparents and all these people, they're experts. You need to consult them all the time. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but I think as black people, then we need to make a move. I was very impressed by a scholar, Professor Ngugi Watiwanga from
Yeah.
he's a massive man. He's a massive man. Ngugi Watiwanga from Kenya. He started off writing his books, his novels in English. Then he got to a point of like, you know what? This is for my people, and most people would say, "Man, you can't do that. You can't do that. You're not going to have audience. You're not going to have people in your books." Like, it's not about that. It's about starting something. But I think as a country, we need to start and say we're gonna do this. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. As a
I think,
issues with identity.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess we are attempting to make changes, but the changes we are attempting to make are not within an academic space. For example, the renaming of Port Elizabeth to Gqeberha. Yes, it's important to do that because it's about identity. It's about having something that you can hold on to, and say this belongs to us, you know. And as much as I can master pronouncing Port Elizabeth, that means white folk need to start pronouncing Gqeberha and really struggle with it as much as we struggle with other terms that are English terms.
Yeah.
But does that give us a real true ownership? Not really.
No.
You rename a place, but after renaming it, the means of production, the ownership of the economy is still in the hands of the same people. So the reality of it is name change is not necessarily the same power at which name change had during the time period of colonization. During the time period of colonization, when they named something, they truly owned it.
Yeah.
With us, we just name it, but we still don't own it. So what's the use of naming it when you don't own it? I'd rather own it first, then begin to name it.
It's more like BEE, eh? Like this company is a black business, and it's run by black people. Board members are black,
Yeah,
but when you get inside the production and
yeah,
how the company is being run, it has it's non-black company. It's just BEE.
yeah. It's
The name
just a
like that.
black face. It's
Yeah.
just a black face. And a lot of the time, the question is, does that black face have the power to make decisions,
Hey.
meaningful decisions? You know.
Hey.
And when I say power to make decisions, I don't mean decisions that are for the benefit of the individual and for the benefit of the business itself, but I'm saying decisions that are for the benefit of society that did not have access into that company first. You know. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a conversation of which, if 1976 has been a struggle to achieve so much and has so many loopholes that have not yet been achieved, what more fees must fall? You
Oh.
know, the fees must fall struggle is just an attempt to continue the 1976 struggle. Same conversation, just on a slightly different topic.
Wow. Same conversation, slightly on different topic,
Yeah.
but we continue with the
So
struggle. Wow,
It's the same struggle,
it's the
you
same
know.
cycle. So
The,
let's
the, the struggle is for access to education. That's the struggle. Just put it as simple as that. Access to
I see.
education. That's